Hello, this is Dr. J back with some more Legend of Zelda: The Third Quest. So for this installment, we have a lot of things to do on the overworld. We're going to be covering, I think, almost half of the overworld map. So we have so much to do that depending on how long it takes, I might have to already renege on my idea of doing 2 dungeons per video. First thing that we're going to do is enter this beach cave right here, where we meet the old man who gives us a letter to give to an old woman, who he calls the old woman, for some reason assuming that we know who he means. And people who remember the original Legend of Zelda will recognize this as we give this letter to one of the other cave inhabitants in order to make healing potions become viable. Next thing that we're going to do is grab this heart container on the beach here. For some reason we didn't get the sound effect for getting a heart container. And next, besides just taking lots of unnecessary hits like a moron, as we do, we are going to grab some more rupees, because I think we're going to have to spend a whole lot of rupees on this expedition. We're not going to do it by playing the money-making game, though, because I'm not going to cheat with save states, so I'm just going to leave that one be. Gambling is bad, kids. Don't do it. So let's see what's for sale in the shop now. So we've got the blue candle, which we are absolutely going to need. It is a required item to proceed. So we're going to buy that immediately. That has made us pretty much broke now. We've got some other things we're going to want to buy as well if we can get the money. So we're going to continue picking up rupees wherever possible. We've got some hopping Tektites. I wonder why they're called Tektites. If that name is just completely made up or if it actually comes from something. I have no idea. Insert complaints about how many hidden things there are here. This is just a hint cave. Have you found the dungeon in the one rock? Which is probably referring to level 2, which we have indeed already found. So that was optional. We didn't need to do that, but I am trying to 100% this to see everything there is to see, so that's why I wanted to visit that guy. And next up, now that we have the blue candle, we have some other secret locations we can unearth. Now, in addition to being able to bomb secrets... Okay, I missed it. I promised I wouldn't keep complaining about this, so I'm going to try not to. But I'll just say that as annoying... Because you can only use the blue candle once per screen. As annoying as it is having to bomb for things, it's even more annoying when you have a one-use per screen item like the blue candle and you have to leave screens and come back to them over and over to burn trees trying to find secrets. It's the famous "it's a secret to everybody" moblin. So moblins are mostly Ganon's servants and just try to fight and kill us, but occasionally we meet friendly moblins who, I guess in order to avoid Ganon's wrath, tell us to keep it a secret that they're helping us by giving us money. And that moblin gave us 100 rupees, which is very welcome. That is going to help us a great deal with the purchases we need to make. Now we're going to backtrack a bit, because since we have the blue candle, there is another of these bush hidden locations that we can unearth. Okay, I swear that I hit the stab button there, but Link chose not to stab. Thank you, Link. that fairy will cooperate. Got her. I remember when I was a kid, I didn't really grok how there's just a limit of you can basically only have one sword beam on screen at a time. So I would just spam the stab button, not really understanding why it didn't shoot sword beams every time. Now I'm older and wiser, of course. I know that spamming the stab button trying to get more sword beams is useless. Here's another secret to everybody moblin. Another 100 rupees. And with that, we are ready to proceed to a new area of the world map. I mentioned how this world map is compressed from the original to half the size. And as I said in the first video, that doesn't bother me, because I feel like this size feels about right. And that in the original, there was too much empty space. It was unnecessarily large, and just made it take longer to get from place to place for no real benefit. So I actually think it's an improvement that the overworld has its size reduced. Oh right, we don't have a powerful enough sword to kill the Zora yet, because I think his health recharges every time he goes back under the water. Anyway, we can see that we have bushes blocking us here. And by video game logic, we can't just cut them. So we did need to get the blue candle in order to be able to proceed to this new part of the map here. Here we have some Armos statues, which sometimes come to life when you touch them. We see now that we have left behind the more rocky and barren area of the east, and now we're in a more fertile, verdant forest type environment, which is a welcome change. We have another secret here. Burn that bush, walk into the fire, trying to avoid the Zora bullet. And another moblin with a secret to everybody. Another 100 rupees, and now we are rolling in dough. Hopefully we can afford what it is that we have been saving up for just in time to reach a new shop cave. So what I was saving up for here is the blue ring, because the blue ring causes you to take half damage from everything, so it is amazing. It also changes the color of our tunic to blue, and as long as we're at it, let's grab the bait, because we are going to need that at some point. I don't remember off the top of my head which dungeon we need it in, but we are going to need it to proceed eventually. Now we go south into the forest, where a bunch of blue spear-throwing moblins await us. Alright, so this is the Lost Woods. The earliest incarnation of the Lost Woods, so not as dramatic as later versions thereof. Okay, so from here, we have another secret to unearth, or to burn away with our blue candle. And that's going to be right there. And we meet the old woman who says she's expecting a letter, which we have to actually use. And without any fanfare, she then offers us potions for sale, or medicine, as they're called. Because we blew our wad on the blue ring, we can't afford it yet. But let's remember we can buy medicine now, because it is extremely valuable. And so in the first game, in order to get through the Lost Woods, you just need to follow a specific series of directions. which is going to be north, west, south, and west again. Now the game is not so evil that it tries to force you to figure that out through trial and error, like a lot of the other secrets. There is a person that you can find in a cave who tells you the secret to navigating the Lost Woods. I haven't found that person yet, so we kind of did that before actually getting the hint for it. We can see that even with the blue ring, that blue Lionel did a full heart of damage to us, so we would have done 2 hearts without it. And these guys take a lot of hits, they have a lot of health. Lionels are the strongest overworld enemy. We're doing very, very poorly against them here. This is going to go easier once we have a more powerful sword. The P-hats are also making it a bit of a pain. I liked the reappearance of Lionels in Breath of the Wild as sort of mini-boss enemies that you can counter. I think they were really well done. It was cool seeing the Lionels again in that game, in a modern incarnation. So, there is something really cool up here, but it's unlikely we're going to be able to get through the tornadoes. The tornadoes will go away, I think, after we complete the next dungeon. It is possible to get through them, but I don't think I'm going to waste a lot of time trying. So we'll remember that's there and come back to it later. In the meantime, we're going to need to do a bit of backtracking in order to get to our next destination. Yeah, as I was mentioning in the previous video, it's interesting how the original Legend of Zelda feels so post-apocalyptic because it's just this monster-infested wasteland. What few people are still alive are holed up in caves. It's just very, very post-apocalyptic, as I keep saying. And the dungeons are very alien feeling, and at least with the original graphics, have an almost technological feel to them. Now obviously subsequent Zeldas expanded on the world, and we saw that it's a traditional classic fantasy world, which is completely fine with me. I like classic fantasy a lot. But just taking the original game in isolation and not factoring in all the later games, just interpreting the world through the lens of this first game alone, you could really put sort of a sci-fi slant on this with how it almost feels as though there was some kind of horrible disaster that has reduced the world to this terrible state. And you've got the weird alien, almost technological dungeons. And the world itself, this is just a consequence of the fact that the original Nintendo's graphics were very primitive and the resources of the computational resources available were so limited, etc., etc. So I don't think this was really a conscious design decision so much as a consequence of the limitations. But the original environment has a very, what would you say, artificial feel to it. How everything is all right angles, and like this forest here feels more planted than natural. You could almost say the whole place feels like a giant garden. Which, again, you can put kind of a sci-fi slant on that, between that and the alien-feeling technological dungeons and the post-apocalyptic feel and everything. They could have taken the Zelda series in a very, very different direction based on all that feel. It's interesting to just kind of think of that as a what-if scenario. But anyway, here's another secret that I almost missed, but then I remembered it. And it's a very important secret, because it lets us get a heart container. Getting the medicine is a complete trap. Why would you get a one-time consumable, or I think the red medicine might be usable twice, but either way, a very limited consumable heal versus a permanent health upgrade? The game is just trying to trick you into making a bad choice there. Alright, so I think that's just about everything we can get. Except that there's this secret here. Ah, this is the hint as to how to navigate the Lost Woods. This old man tells us go north, west, south, and west in the Lost Woods. And now we have finally arrived at our destination, the third dungeon. There's yet another secret on this screen. Secrets just everywhere. More rupees. We're going to want to visit another shop later. We can afford medicine now. Alright. So, after wandering around on the overworld for quite a while and finding all kinds of secrets, it's finally time to enter the third dungeon. A very minor detail, but I like how there is this little sandy bit right inside the door of the dungeons. It kind of contributes to the old decrepit feel of the dungeons by just kind of suggesting that sand and dirt has leaked through the entrance. I just think that's kind of cool. Very minor detail. And the creepy statues. The one on the left looks like a monstrous fish, and the one on the right looks like a monstrous bird, contributing to the kind of alien feel of these dungeons. I've always felt that birds and fish are very alien feeling creatures because they're so distant from mammals. So anytime you want to have kind of an alien feel, I think basing imagery on birds and fish is a good decision. I hate it so much when there's enemies right inside the door like that, to just walk into you and ambush you. It feels like a real cheap shot. I'm not a fan. And it's a good thing that I got the blue ring considering how poorly I'm playing and just taking unnecessary hits left and right. Again, we could get this with the boomerang, but we're full on bombs, so why? Also, it disappeared for some reason. Well, that's a pretty obvious hint if I've ever seen one. So this leads us to a key. Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to kill all those, and they're annoying. Let's just see if there's another entrance there. I didn't think there was. Bombable wall, I mean. I'm actually gonna... Okay, maybe we have to kill these guys to open the door behind us. I guess my other complaint about the original Zelda, aside from the over-reliance on just hiding things arbitrarily and forcing the player to use tedious trial and error to find them, my other complaint is some of the combat feels a little frustrating because of the enemy's highly random movement. Maybe I'm just kind of bad. That's entirely possible, but I feel like sometimes it's just luck whether you get hit or not. But it's entirely possible I'm just bad at this game. I won't discount that possibility. Although it's another very simple thing, I like how even though the dungeons, unlike in later Zeldas, don't have completely different tile sets and like themes, like a desert dungeon or ice dungeon or water dungeon, that they nonetheless differentiate themselves graphically by just being different colors, by just changing up the palette. I think it actually works surprisingly well. I kind of like it. Aha! I didn't remember that was there. That was just, I don't know, intuition, I guess. Let's switch to the Boomerang. Alright, we are loaded with keys. We've been picking them up a lot, so we can proceed here no problem. Dark Nuts. So Dark Nuts, pretty famous enemy in Legend of Zelda. One of my complaints about Breath of the Wild was, although including Lynel's was awesome, it did not include some of my favorite iconic enemies, like there's no Dark Nuts or Iron Knuckles anywhere in Breath of the Wild, which feels to me like a strange oversight. But Dark Nuts are a cool enemy. In the original Legend of Zelda, their heavy armor is represented by simply the fact that you can't damage them from the front. Which, combine that with their random movement, and if you don't have ranged weapons, it actually makes them very challenging and dangerous to fight. And we just got the Raft, which is a mission critical item that we will need to proceed. During my test run, I completely missed that on my first run through this dungeon and had to come back to this dungeon and backtrack for it. Maybe those guys don't drop items, I'm not sure. I can't wait till I get a better sword. It takes me so many hits to kill everything. I think we'll be able to get it after this dungeon. Alright, and now we've come back to this room. And we can proceed through that locked door. And finally enter a new area. There's a dungeon map. This is what I was talking about with how the combat feels a little frustrating sometimes. I don't actually feel like I'm playing that terribly. It's just... the enemies aren't really pattern-based, they just move around randomly, which makes it very difficult to fight them effectively sometimes. I have a much easier time in, for example, Ocarina of Time, fighting lots of enemies without taking any hits because they have a more learnable patterns, I guess you could say. But again, I'm probably just bad at this game, to be honest. Bad at the original. Now we get an upgraded Boomerang. I think it just goes farther when you throw it. Maybe it also can kill more enemies. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. But I'm doing extremely poorly again. Very low on health. And things are not dropping health items, so I'm getting unlucky as well. Flashbacks to how the first dungeon went. Okay, and once again, I know I keep complaining about this, but that ambushing you the instant you come in the room is irritating. But we avoided it that time. Oh, my kingdom for a sword that does more damage. I'm getting tired of having to stab enemies so many times. Thank you, a fairy. Come on, fairy, thank you. Okay, now we're doing better. Fairies heal a lot, but they're not a full heal. Using my Boomerang in between hits to keep him stunned. A cheesy and tedious tactic, but it works. Alright, so now we're looking a lot better. So old man says, I hear growling coming from the next room, which is just a pretty unnecessary hint that we need to bomb this wall. I say unnecessary because you've almost certainly picked up the map once you get that far, so you can see that there's a wall over there. And infer that you need to bomb. These Vires are kind of goofy looking. I guess they're supposed to be pretty demonic enemies, and they could be intimidating with different sprite, but they just end up being very goofy looking, in my opinion, with their sprite here. More bats. We push that block to open up a secret staircase. And if we check our map, it looks like we have not missed any rooms behind us, so we can just continue onward. The secret staircase is actually where we came from, I believe. A little misleading there, so we actually want to go through the door instead. Now, for the most part, I really like the new sprites in the third quest. As I mentioned, I think the graphics are really well done. A minor complaint I have, however, is I think it's silly looking that the Dark Nuts, are just walking normally and like swinging their swords with their walking motion, whereas in the original they always had their sword out in front of them. I thought that looked better because it looked like they were constantly on the attack. Whereas with this more casual walking motion, it looks like they're just out on a stroll. So this is the Manhandla. We could fight him normally, or we could instantly kill him with a well-placed bomb. Which is preferable, because he can be pretty dangerous if you just try to fight him with your sword. And so we one-shotted Manhandla, and we get the third piece of the Triforce. And with that, we spent so long finding secrets on the overworld that I have to immediately renege on my 2 dungeons per video commitment. We're going to call it there, having completed the 3rd dungeon. And next time on Let's Play The Legend of Zelda, the 3rd quest, we are going to be moving onward to Dungeon 4. I hope you'll join me for that, and see you next time. Bye!